Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VC TV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are here to speak about sustainability, environment, climate, and ESG, all bucketed to sustainability and climate today. A lot to talk about in these areas, so my introduction is going to be a little bit short, but we did get an interesting stat just before the show and from the Wall Street Journal Venture Capital Twitter handle that per sources at Preqin, we actually saw a 45% increase in funding from 2019 into 2020. So Preqin is reporting that we saw $75 million invested in 2020. We spoke about PitchBook's numbers last week. This is now Preqin's. And again, it's a 45% increase in funding. And we also saw the number of venture funds decrease by a fifth. We were talking a little bit about that pre-show and what that also means for sustainability and for climate investments as well, and the companies that are building those. So stay tuned as we open up those doors here in just a moment as we get started. But before we do, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear today, do click the subscribe button, the share, and make sure to check out the archive to hear more about not just today's subject, but also from all of our speakers and other speakers, a part of the VCTV family, as we bring together the best and the brightest from around the world to share with you their insights and on-the-ground perspective about different technologies, industries, and regions around the world. So you as investors have the latest knowledge of where the latest trends are and opportunities for you to place your bets. And founders, you have the insights of who's investing where and who may be a great opportunity advisor for you as well. But if you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor, reach out and we'll find the right topic or industry for you to speak about. And entrepreneurs, there's also a spot here for you on our virtual stage for you to pitch us your company, product, or service, get real-time feedback, and build relationships with each and every one of us, along with exposure to the entire VC TV community, who is live and active and always responding back to each and every one of us. And also a big thank you to you and all of the messages that you sent each of us as a company and also as guests as well. And a big thank you to the team at LATOKEN and to Maria for making VC TV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle. Let's go ahead and dive in and welcome each and every one of our guests. I'm going to start today a little out of order. I'm going to kick it off with Keith. Welcome back to the show because you have officially said to the world you're a part of Upper State Ventures. I feel like this is a monumental day, a monumental week, and a kickoff to 2021. So start us off. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks very much, Kyle. It's great to be here. Especially today, if people are taking their time to watch this instead of the inauguration. Wow, I mean, what an honor. But yeah, finally went kind of public about what we're doing at Upper Stage. So we are applying the venture toolkit into a private equity sort of stage of company. We're looking at the many companies, and these exist in every geographical area. Companies with $5 to $25 million in sales. They are not yet very interesting for mainstream private equity, and yet they are EBITDA positive. The ones that interest us have good products and technologies, good teams there, but maybe they lack the vision or ambition or the shareholder support to go after international markets. And me and my team, we step in and we provide all of that and the network to really help their products reach their best market.
Wonderful. Thank you, Keith. Gary Fowler, Grandmaster of Artificial Intelligence, welcome up next. It's a pleasure to have you back here. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So it's great to be here and to see some familiar faces. Super. So my name's Gary Fowler. I'm an investor and serial entrepreneur. I love artificial intelligence. I've been involved in 17 companies, soon to be 18, actually. And AI is the new electricity. We love AI and quantum computing. I've had 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software that was sold for $1.35 billion, and also EVA, which is a company I founded God, it seems like yesterday, 4.5 years ago. Hard to believe. Before the show, you were saying, I don't even know what day it is. I feel like that a lot too. It's like, because you're getting up at 4:30 in the morning, going to bed at 11, and you're on events all day long. It's like, it feels like a week in a day. So I know what you mean. Anyhow, I'm the co-founder, president, and CEO of Get Shit Done Venture Studio out of Silicon Valley. We curate companies from around the world. And by that, I mean, we help them by taking operational roles in those companies and garnering either investing or garnering investment for those companies to go global. So it's great to be here. And again, great to see some familiar faces.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gary. A pleasure to have you back as well. Wendy, welcome back to the show. A pleasure as always. A little intro, a little background.
Hey, I'm Wendy Diamond. I'm the founder of Women's Entrepreneurship Day organization, where we work with governments, business leaders, civil society to collaborate to find solutions to uplift women in business to alleviate poverty. So we work with, women founders, women entrepreneurs all over the world, especially in the impact space, which includes what we're talking about today. I'm also a partner in 3 funds that are focused on disruptive technology companies and a main focus on blockchain. I'm also invested in about 20 companies that as a seed investor, and sometimes Series A as well, and always interested in anything that's going to make this world a better place for everybody.
Absolutely, which is perfect for today's topic. So ladies and gentlemen, get ready. We're going to a lot to talk about as well. So thank you, Wendy. Pleasure to have you here today. Habib, welcome to the show as well. A little intro, a little background for you as well.
Thank you, Kyle. Great to be here. So I'm a corporate and securities attorney based out of DC. I've been working with startups in the blockchain, CleanTech, gov contracting space for several years now. We'll invest in a few once in a while. Haven't managed to hit it big on anything yet. And I'm an advisor to several startups as well. I've had the pleasure of working with some great clean tech companies that I can hopefully share some insights from today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Habib. Excited to dive into that. Brian, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure. Happy 2021 as well. Since this is your first episode this year with us, a little intro, a little background.
Hey, thank you, Kyle. It's great to see you. It has been way too long. I'm sorry for my long absence, and I've missed seeing all your faces and being part of these discussions. My background is in food media, but about 5 years ago, I made a pivot into working full-time in the food and agriculture investment space. I work currently for a number of different sustainability-focused funds, all in food and agriculture, including one fund focused on food and beverages, CPG, and another fund focused on organic farmland investment. Again, looking in my investment work, looking at the entire food supply chain from the farm through processing and technology, food tech, and all the way to consumer products, but always looking for investments with a sustainability and positive impact focus.
Wonderful. And thank you, Brian. And last but not least, Raghu, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure. Haven't seen you in about 24 hours, but it's great to see you here today. A little intro, a little background.
Thank you, Kyle and VCTV. I'm a serial entrepreneur, business mentor, as well as advisor. I had a company which did all the background screening for TSA, which got sold in 2017. I've dabbled in GreenTech, biotech, CleanTech, and cybersecurity areas. So, thank you.
Wow, thank you, Raghu. A little change up on the introduction there. A little more detail. It's exciting to hear, and welcome everybody. Again, today's topic is very important, something that's dear to all of us, and something we've all spoken about either collectively or individually here on VCTV. And again, that is around sustainability and clean tech. And also going to be mentioning a little bit of ESG. But because so much has happened, we've already talked about the amount of venture capital dollars that went into companies last year in 2020. We may see that metric grow even more as an increase this year here in 2021. We know that climate and sustainability and clean tech as well is on the forefront or now a part of theses for many investors. We saw a number of new funds, including that from Union Square Ventures that was created in 2020, solely focused on clean tech and sustainability. But we'd love to come to you each and to hear what your current state is, what you're seeing happening in the world around, again, sustainability and clean tech, as we'll refer to it for the rest of the show. So Habib, let's kick it off with you, if you're okay with that. Kind of paint the picture for us of what you're seeing in the world, having advised companies and then also working on the legal side with many early stage to late stage companies in the space.
Sure. So I'll start with what I've been seeing over the past year or two, and then what I'm kind of hoping I'll see, not getting into politics, but recognizing the reality of a new administration and a new majority in Congress and how that might play out. So over the past couple of years, I feel like there has been a little bit of a cut back. A lot of my clients were used to seeing different tax credits and things, and there was some motivation for clean tech that I think in the US kind of died down during the last administration, for better or for worse. What I am seeing, though, is that a lot of these companies, continue trucking on, developing their products. They're looking forward to what we're probably going to see is a resurgence of incentives and tax credits coming out of the new administration. So that's been a big focus as we're looking forward. Another interesting development over the last year has been the role of the retail investor in propping up some of these clean tech and energy focused companies. I think what we've seen is, sort of different from what usually drives the market. You have a lot of people these days sitting at home, trading on Robinhood, and they are buying into a lot of the hype and, also investing, as some of these other panelists have said, using their hearts and their minds, right? So looking at sustainability, looking at what they think is going to make an impact in the world. And a lot of energy companies and clean tech companies have seen the benefits of that. So some of my clients are also eager to get out there and get into the market because it's seen as a nice time to cash out. I think one of the big innovations, not an innovation, but something sort of new that we've also seen come out of all of this in the past year has been the rise of the SPAC as a vehicle for doing so. And I think one of the biggest examples of this, I'm going to butcher his name. Someone help me out here.
Yeah, we're gonna let you just take this one. Go ahead and butcher it. It's okay.
Polyhopathia. I think we've seen like the tremendous success he's had in sort of acquiring different tech companies and rolling them out. And I'm hoping we're going to see a little bit more of this in the clean tech space. It's nice to have the up and coming companies in this area, but I think it's been a little bit of time since we've seen these sort of medium-sized companies that are really able to take on capital and explode. And hopefully within the next year, we'll be getting to see more of that.
Absolutely. And thank you, Habib. And Wendy, I want to come to you next on this. Again, it's an area you focus a lot on, but also any comments to add on Habib's point as well. Oh, great starting off point though. It was right on point.
Okay, so sorry. Well, actually, it's like the most exciting time in history right now, especially for clean tech. I mean, we've got the new team coming into office. We are going to be, Biden already announced that we're going to be joining the Paris Climate Agreement. I mean, when you look at when Kamala was senator, I mean, she was a co-sponsor of, Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal, which was to she was rapidly reducing greenhouse gas emissions over the next decade, which was a little bit crazy, right? But what was also really important as Vice President Kamala is that she also had her own $10 trillion plan for a clean energy transition to eliminate carbon pollution by 2030. from power plants. So when you think about like the new administration and what's happening, and we're so excited because when you look at what's going to happen, especially here in America, we've got we have a leadership team that really is finding this one of the most important aspects to focus on in the new term. So I'm really excited about that, of course. Woohoo! And especially because of Kamala being the first woman vice president, but also African-American vice president. So this is just a super exciting time for minorities and women, and especially those that we have a lot of opportunities, especially now where there's a lot of women funds that are starting as well, with also a focus on clean energy as well. And then, just looking at the overall, what's happening as well is, just before the new year, you had BlackRock announcing their $7 trillion asset manager, that their new investment strategy includes this, right? It's including, climate change and all these different aspects and investing in this whole sector. So I think you're going to see a lot of money into it. I think you see all these other big companies too. I mean, I just had a call with the Fidelity Sustainability Fund. And so when you think about it, their focus is on water. So all the different companies in the world now are making, huge impact in the sense of announcing initiatives and by 2025, by 2030. So we're going to see a lot of changes in the next new year.
Kyle, if I can add one other example, I think just
Please.
to piggyback on what Habib and Wendy have said, another newsworthy item is TPG, the global private equity leader, just rolled out its latest, the latest sort of fundraise for its impact fund, the TPG Rise Fund. They just raised an additional $8 billion for TPG Rise Climate. And they're redirecting a number of their key senior staff to focus on this fund. And they tapped Henry Paulson, the former Treasury Secretary, to head it up. So what examples like this show to me, and Wendy mentioned some other major institutional investors who are launching impact funds, is these companies have no shortage of deal flow. But of course, they see that there's a lack of inventory in terms of really good impact-focused investments. And that is where everyone's interest is going. And the parallel or the example I use for food and agriculture that I think could be layered into any other industry we talk about here, whether it's energy or healthcare or AI, is that awareness of the need for impact and sustainability, that has gone mainstream. Awareness has gone mainstream, but implementation is far from mainstream. So we're really just at the beginning. We have to go, in order to go from awareness to actual implementation, now we need to put a lot of money to work and shift that capital into impact-focused investments.
Do you think, Brian, on that point, do you see that as something that's going to change? Great points, by the way, both to what you mentioned, but also Wendy and Habib. But do you see that changing here in 2021? Is that something that's going to be a longer term play? I mean, we're talking about monumental moves, some of which should be more instantaneous than others. But here in 2021, this year, do you see that as something that's really going to change, or do you think it's a 3 to 5 year plan?
I think it could really accelerate this year. I mean, again, I'm relatively new to this career, but what I've heard over and over again, and I think everyone on this panel will agree, is, investors are a little bit like sheep and they follow each other. And when you see a Prudential and a UBS and a TPG launching these mega impact funds, it gives everyone else a little more leeway to do the same.
Absolutely. Thank you. Keith, I see you shaking your head. You've got a smirk on your face, like you've got a comment. Thank you, Brian. Anything to add on to Brian, Wendy, or Habib's point? But then also would love to hear your thoughts of kind of where things are, but I'll let you comment first.
No, I'll follow up on what Wendy and Brian just said. I think that what you see here is a FOMO. You see a fear of missing out as some of these mega funds close, oversubscribed, they're completely done, and there are groups of LPs out there that that wish that they were part of it, and they see who are the LPs in those other funds. They're like, oh, I really wanted to be with them. I want to be like them. I want to have returns like them, and then they look around for their plan B. Okay, so we couldn't get into that one, but who's our first runner-up? And so it benefits all the other funds that go along there. Eventually, though, you need to show 10-year returns in a field, and CleanTech has really suffered from very poor returns over the last 20 years. If you look at the Cambridge Associates data published on over 1,600 CleanTech investments since 2000, that data is pretty bad. And I know that data intimately because I've spent the last several months, in addition to what I'm doing at Upper Stage, let's say complementary to what I'm doing there, I am the chairman of the Foresight CleanTech Accelerator Center, which is Canada's largest CleanTech focused accelerator, over 500 client companies through our programs to date. We have been looking at creating an affiliated fund to go into CleanTech. And I said, if we're going to do that, we need to have a data-derived investment thesis, something that can point to the data and not just to my network or experience or, you know, just gut feel. Oh, I've been doing this for 20 years, so I really know what I'm doing. Okay, that may be true, but let's point to data. And going through that data actually for months really depressed me because overall the picture seems really bleak. If you look at the mega numbers are distorted by big failures like Solyndra that you know, ate up a couple $2 billion each and didn't provide any significant return at all. The successes, the many successes that are in CleanTech get obscured by the very strong signal of those massive failures. So how do you find a pattern in CleanTech that works? And I eventually did find one, and it is business model. It is the pattern of CleanTech to sell equipment or material supply, or even worse, just sell energy, the ultimate commodity over which you have no control of pricing or therefore margins. But successful, consistently successful CleanTech companies tend to have a service model. And that's why I've proposed doing a fund with CleanTech as a service as its investment thesis. And there are, do I have time to give one example of this?
Yeah, a quick one, sure.
Carbon Cure company, they inject CO2 into concrete, forms these nanocrystals, makes the concrete stronger. So you need less cement in the concrete to achieve the same structural strength. When first looked at this company, they were using this process to make masonry bricks, masonry blocks and bricks. And it was commercial, but they were just selling these things and people were making walkways with them and, oh yeah, feel good story, all that. But you can't really build a great business out of that. Where we invested, where we got excited was when they moved into ready-mix concrete and they adopted a service business model. They would install the equipment into the concrete manufacturer's plants. They would provide the service of injecting the CO2, saving the concrete manufacturer significantly on their cement intake. So the concrete manufacturer didn't have to pay anything for the equipment. They are in the black from the very first month that they are using this because they have this enormous savings on their cement, and they have some PR, some marketing angle now too, because they're using CO2 to make their concrete stronger. Okay, that may have some soft value, but they have a huge impact on their margin. For Carbon Cure, this meant that adoption went through the roof. Their customers are making money from the very first month that they're using it. Carbon Cure is able to monitor what they're doing and able to set their pricing and their margins to capture a portion of the value that their customers are realizing from the use of their technology. And that's the key. If you're only selling equipment, if you're only selling commodity, you have to price it accordingly, and your customers are just looking at it as a one-time purchase or as an ongoing input into what they're doing. They're very cost sensitive. But if you're providing a service that helps your customers make more money or make more on the bottom line, then the customers are willing to give up more of the value because they're winning all along. And I'm convinced that this is a pattern that sees successful clean tech companies.
I see shaking heads all around. So real quick, I'm going to come to Gary next around his anything to comment on Keith, and then your current view, and Raghu, and then I've got questions quickly for all of you on follow up. But go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge, Kyle, is that people don't understand the enormous challenge that we have. So, we need to frame it. I mean, if you talk to most of the panelists here today will understand, but we're talking about by the end of 2100 that the average sea level could go up 12 feet, 12 feet. And it would affect about 1 billion people worldwide. Just in the US from 1960 to 2015, on the mid-Atlantic coast, the sea level went up 8 inches in some places. So we've got some serious challenges. And then it's not just about the sea level going up. I told you about Dr. Irving Crick, who was at Princeton University and then opened a meteorology department at Caltech. For 8 months, I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Crick on a startup. And it was fascinating because we looked at long-range weather as a nonlinear methodology, but really about the patterns. And then we talked about global warming, and he was talking about things like super hurricanes, 250-mile-an-hour hurricanes, the Gulf Stream, the slowing down, just a lot of other effects. So we're in a situation where we've got to make those changes. And so, what happens today, and it's great that the administration's coming in, and I cheer it, and I'm glad, and to make this world a cleaner and better place. But at the same time, it's not just about the US. There are a lot of other countries out there polluting way worse than what we are. And we've got to make the changes, but it's not going to impact us for 20 to 30 years out. And as we said before, in India, to be able to see the Himalayas for the first time in 30 years, and it's just beautiful, right? So we know we can have some kind of impact. So where are we? I mean, look at electric cars and where we are today. It's, growth of 46% per year, 57% of cars in the next few years are looked at as being electric worldwide. These are the kind of technologies that can have an impact. So, go back to basics. Remember, I'm a country boy. So we have better batteries. We invest in better batteries that last longer, that are, I remember when we did a startup looking at lithium fluoride chemical batteries that weren't as subjected to heat, right? Heat's a big problem with batteries, and the hotter it gets, the more unstable they get, especially lithium ion, many of the lithium ion. So we need to invest in technology to be able to really support it. And it's, the sense of urgency is now, because most people don't understand, frame the problem of how intense it is. And then at the same time, we need to do this on a global basis, not just in the US. We need to understand whether we're in India or China or Russia, that these kind of consequences going to happen, and we need to make changes. I remember Dr. Crick told me one thing. He said, Gary, Canada and Russia are going to be the breadbasket. As global warming starts to take place, right, we're going to start to move about where things are being produced, and we're going to start moving inward and up. And it's interesting because it's happening. And he also told me something, Kyle, it was interesting. He said, that we're going to start having more bottled water, because water is going to be sold as a commodity, much like oil. And I'm like, yeah. This is back in the early 90s, right? And I'm like, yeah. Oh, this guy's 80-some years old, and he's telling me this stuff. And seriously, I mean, what he said has started to come true. Highly unstable weather patterns, right? Unpredictable weather patterns. And so a tornado will be, 30% more powerful than it was before. Hurricanes will be more powerful. So what we need to do is we need to look at, one is frame the problem, because I don't think people understand how dire the situation is. And then let's go out and let's correct it. Let's take it, step by step. What do we need to do? Electrify vehicles and not go through combustion engines. Go down through solar. It's only been the last couple of years in Florida they were allowed to have solar, right? They were Florida Power and Light kind of restricted it. So it's only been the last few years we've had that, but we need to do it on a wider basis. So I'm encouraged. And then, with the circular economy, and we all those make, use, and dispose, right? That's got to go. We got to figure out how to make better systems so that as we clean it up, that we've got this linear, idea, this circular idea that can really help us reprocess all those, plastics or bottles, whatever, and make it easy to do. And it's not so easy today. And I see it all the time, even where I am here in Palm Beach. I could, I see the containers. There's yellow, blue, green, red. I mean, it's like, and there's no label. It's like there's some paper in this, there's plastic in that, there's glass in this, but it's like each one of them has some of the other. It's like, let's make it easier.
Well, and I see shaking heads all around. It also goes all the way back to the beginning of that value chain, to your point as well, right? So the companies that are making those types of products, starting there and working through how those products are being made. But before we go further, Raghu, I want to get to you. I'm so sorry. Current state, what are you seeing in terms of, first off, any comments, anything anyone has said, but then also what are you seeing from your view? And then again, I have follow-ups for
a lot of it has been covered. And I also I'm excited about the new administration coming in from the perspective of sustainability and renewable technologies. And another plug for Kamala Harris. Her mother is from the town I was born in. So in addition to being African-American and woman, there's the Indian angle too. So I wanted to actually highlight some areas others didn't talk about. I think one of the areas, I guess, from the circular economy, batteries are becoming very big, but recycling in batteries is something that there isn't enough interest and attention in there. I think that's one area that a company called NCS Global is doing amazing work in the circular economy, the recycling aspect in terms of the supply chain, getting it to the right places, from the recycling. I think in the last panel I was on sustainability, I actually circulated an article how, our guilt feelings are appeased by just recycling, but a lot of the recycling is ending up in the landfill. So I think that's aspect that really needs to be looked at, because everybody's happy things are being recycled, or at least put in recycling, but we don't know how much of it is actually being recycled, right? So that's one aspect. The other thing that I'm excited about is that I'm advising a biofuels company, which has got a very interesting idea of how to recycle things like cooking oil, waste cooking oil, a lot of stuff that will end up in the landfill, toxic stuff as well, and things like brown grease, and also switching over from soybean oil, which is used for human consumption, to something that is less expensive, but is pure energy crop, and which can grow in arid areas where other things don't grow. Especially we're partnering with a Native American tribe, so it's all the more it's giving them employment and things as well. So I'm very excited about those areas, biofuels, circular economy, recycling, and battery tech, especially battery recycling.
And thank you, Raghu. And Habib, I want to start with you and Wendy and talk a little bit around blockchain and where blockchain plays a role in sustainability and in clean tech as well. I mean, to the points that were all made, there seems like there's an opportunity here. So Habib, let's start with you. Wendy, you unmuted first, so I'm going to give it to you. Wendy, where does blockchain play a role in sustainability and clean tech?
Well, I think really most importantly is supply chain, right? Because if you think about, what's happening right now in the world, I think what I've seen a lot is more collaborations, right? And so looking at one example is a project that we're working on in India, where we're working with the government of India and the United Nations Environmental Program. And we're putting on, we're creating this whole initiative with 6 million farmers in the state of Andhra Pradesh of India that are stopping using fertilizers and pesticides because they had a high suicide rate, right? And so they finally were like, wow, what's going on? And they did the research and they found it was like these chemicals and everything in their food. And so it really dropped the number down when they went back to the old ancient Indian practices of manure, sugarcane, and urine to fertilize the land. Even though that sounds gross, it actually is really healthy. And so anyways, so fast forward, bringing, what we see today, and especially with millennials and et cetera, they want to understand what they're eating, where is this from, what's in, what was this made out of? And so, when we look at blockchain, I think it's really like key that what this does is provides the traceability and the transparency. And I think, you know, in this project that we're working on in India, which is now being done in the Caribbean, and as well as Giselle Bundchen, the supermodel, just invested in the company, will be going to Brazil, is that we just partnered with IBM as with their food trust program, so that now we're going to be adding to their hyperledger, right, this aspect of bringing storytelling. So now in the future, when you're going to go to retailers and you're going to go places, you're going to be able to scan the barcodes and see exactly, and also restaurants. We have a whole program with seafood restaurants. And so like you're going to be able to scan the barcode and see exactly where the food was made, where it was harvested, where, how it got here, et cetera, and every aspect of that. And you're getting that through the blockchain. So I think you're going to see a lot of that, in every aspect, as you're seeing it in the shipping industry, and you're seeing it in a lot of these different factors. So I think, collaboration is the future. Collaborating with IBM, collaborating with Walmart and Carrefour, one of the biggest retailers in Europe, have come on as partners in this whole project and initiative. I think, and looking at, okay, how do we really create, and how do we support climate change? One of the biggest factors is agriculture, right? And so I think, like a lot of this, and focused on, using blockchain to bring the traceability and transparency to show that, and use the data, right, to prove how we're going to make an impact in this world.
Absolutely. Habib, anything to add on that? Thank you, Wendy.
Sure. I mean, I'll echo Wendy. I think, the granular and automated ability to track energy is going to be extremely important. Being able to actually look at, this much of our energy is coming from clean energy is important. But then going back to some of the basics, what we've seen blockchain used for over the last, decade. Obviously, most people here probably can't forget trust, right? That's been first and foremost with blockchain, being able to look at how these companies are operating, how much they're generating, where the energy is going. I think that creates an ability for consumers like myself or investors as well to be able to go to these companies, decide who they're going to go with, support the right companies, invest in the right companies. And then financing, right? Not to make this all about crypto or anything like that, but there is something there where, we've failed over the last few decades to align incentives on some of these needed changes, right? I think Raghu was talking about recycling, for example. There's a lot that can be done, but we simply haven't aligned the economic incentives properly. So it might cost, $1 more per ton to recycle certain things, and it just doesn't make economic sense. And people aren't running a charity at the end of the day. As much as you want to make an impact, you're also not looking to drive yourself into the hole. So, it's possible that where governments have failed, people can pick that up and create markets around these sorts of commodities.
Right. And that brings up Keith's point as well, or comes back to Keith's point around business models. And I feel like he's raising his hand right now. So Keith, anything to add on that further?
No, I didn't mean to raise my hand. I'm in agreement here. I don't have a whole lot of experience in blockchain or crypto investing myself, but this whole idea of tracking not just usage but provenance is something that is becoming increasingly important. And as governments and also corporations set goals for sustainability, we are going to see more and more need for transparency around energy provenance and not just usage.
Absolutely. And Brian, I want to come to you real quick around food tech. So we've talked a lot about sustainability as a whole and clean tech, but how does food and the world that is changing very quickly, or rapidly, I should say, around food tech play a role in the bigger picture of sustainability, as this is an area I know you focus a lot on?
Well, technology has been moving really rapidly into every element of the food chain. And the food industry is perhaps our most analog industry on the planet, right? It still depends on earth and water primarily, and the sun. But what technology moving into the food chain means is that transparency becomes that much easier. It becomes that much easier to demonstrate exactly where something was grown, how it was grown, what ingredients are in a product. And what we've especially seen in this last year, as every food business, from mom and pop restaurants to small food manufacturers, as everyone's been forced to have an online presence, everyone has been digitally disrupted. You cannot hide anymore, right? This sort of digital disruption has forced every business essentially to be more transparent by default. And I think that's primarily been a good thing. A lot of that technology disruption has been difficult for older businesses to adapt to, but it has also made it that much easier for the consumer, the eater, the ultimate buyer of the food, to get that information that maybe they were craving. The other thing that we've seen more and more, and we've talked about this on earlier episodes, is we live in what I call a post-Michael Pollan era when it comes to food. Michael Pollan, of course, the New York Times food writer who is responsible for bringing the idea of sustainable food and the impact of our eating habits to a big mainstream audience. And as a result, you don't get food companies that are founded nowadays that don't have a mission. Every food company that is founded, every food startup that is founded today has a mission to fix the food system, right? I mean, this is not a mission that Pepsi had when they were founded, that McDonald's had, that ADM had. And that's what distinguishes food companies and food investments of today from food investments of earlier. And I think that's just accelerating. We can't take for granted how big an impact our food choices have on the planet, and as a result, on sustainability trends, right? The way we grow food uses about 3/4 of the world's fresh water. Agriculture uses, in some way, shape, or form, about 40% of the Earth's landmass. And by recent estimates, our food system generates about 1/3 of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. So that just gives you some sense of how big an impact food and agriculture has. And to Keith's earlier point about people not wanting to miss out, I will say that I've seen firsthand that a lot of very large investors have ignored food and agriculture for a long time. Again, it was seen as sort of an old-fashioned, low-margin, uninteresting industry, even though it's quite an essential industry. And that realization, that perception is also beginning to change. We can't ignore food and agriculture simply because of the massive toll it has on our planet and on human health.
Absolutely. Seeing shaking heads all around. And Raghu, I want to come to you real quick. So data information was mentioned. Gary's talked a number of times around artificial intelligence, how that will play an impactful role at around this data. But from a security perspective, as we spoke about this yesterday, what are your quick thoughts around how security now plays a role as more data is open, more data is available, and maybe more transparency is provided as well? Is this security something we need to worry about in any way, shape, or form? And I'll let you take it from there.
Before I pivot to that, I just wanted to make a quick comment on what Brian said about food choices. There's one industry that's really taking off is plant-based foods, especially plant-based meat, and something for people to look into. And that just the single largest contributor to the whole global warming issue is, so that's something to look at. Going back to the data side, right? I think there are two aspects. One is the security, and then there is the privacy, and just handling the volume of data we have, which is like so much is happening at the edge. And if we have better techniques to kind of cull the information we need and throw away all the other stuff, right? That the edge processing and edge security, including, of course, privacy, because it could be your or whatever, your Apple Watch or Fitbit, there's so much stuff, information that we can glean the important information and take it. But of course, we need to have a privacy and security controls in place. So there's humongous amount of data being generated. So we absolutely need better technology. AI is obviously going to be important there as well, especially in deciding what data to keep and that part of it. So melding of AI and cybersecurity, as we talked about last time. The other important thing that I think we need to look at is remote monitoring and predictive maintenance, especially a lot of these plants like nuclear plants and chemical plants and all that. There's a huge cost saving as well as reduction and dumping systems earlier. If you can do the maintenance in a predictive way and keep things running, not only from reducing downtime, but also things are more efficiently used and potentially recycling could come in there. Where before something gets so broken that it cannot be recycled, you kind of put in something else, take it out, and then start using it again. Again, goes back to the circular economy, but with a different twist, which is remote monitoring, which is where IoT and some of these other things come in. So I think this is a very exciting space, So.
Absolutely, Gary. Rapid fire question, super quick before we come around for last quick thoughts here. Quantum. This is a huge area of focus for you right now. Quantum. How does that play a role in the future of sustainability and clean tech, in your opinion?
Well, Raghu said it. It's about data, right? And so if you can do it, remember, I'm a country boy. We grew up on a farm. If you can do it faster and optimize it, it's better. So having the capability to take hundreds of millions of data points and be able to synthesize those to come to some conclusions very, very quickly, obviously it's going to help. Imagine having a system, as Google has, it's 100 million times faster than a supercomputer that can do what would take 10,000 years in 200 seconds. So we're talking about able to solve very complex problems. But one of the other things is to be able to use, genomics and to be able to understand how we can make heartier food, better food, and to be able to really get ready for this population boom it's going to take place. So we're currently at 8.1 billion. We'll be somewhere around 13 billion by the end of the 2100 and by 2100. So we now have to make sure we're highly efficient. And the other thing to think about is water supplies, right? There's going to be issues with water, clean water. So how do we protect the water to make it better? And the systems today just aren't in place. I mean, think about it. I've talked about this before, but you buy a house, they check your water in a well when you're selling the house. But what happens for another 8 years that you're living in the house and you're drinking that water? You have no clue what you're drinking. I mean, I had it with my house. I built a large house, an 8,000 square foot house, very close to or on a former farm. Well, they fertilized that farm, and the material would leach down into the well, and it created geodiasis. I had to put ultraviolet lights. I mean, it was all kinds of issues. So we need to use technology to be able to monitor the situation, to be able to understand real time what's happening and not wait.
Right. And thank you, Gary. And real quick, where can everyone find you to continue the conversation as well, along with GSDV?
Yeah. So you can reach me, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, gsdvs.com. You can reach me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn is preferable. So I'd love to hear from you, and keep a positive attitude and go get them.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Brian, to you, any quick closing thoughts else to add? And then where can you be found online as well?
Well, I just want to second the point that Raghu made about plant-based foods. And I think it's a great example of how rapidly we've seen the food industry change and adapt. I mean, who would have thought that so many people around the country would have oat milk in their fridge? It's incredible that grocery industry stats show that 50% of American refrigerators now have a plant-based milk right next to a traditional dairy. So, this is a level of innovation that's never been seen in the food industry. And to me, that's very exciting because a lot of it is for positive change. So LinkedIn is a great way to connect with me. Please reach out. I've gotten a lot of great ideas and deal flow through this network. And if you want to look at some of the work I'm doing, check out Belltown Farms and also Almanac Insights. And yeah, I look forward to staying in touch with everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brian. Raghu, where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn at Raghu S. Rao, and I really enjoy these conversations because we learn a lot. Thank you, VCTV.
Thank you, Raghu. Habib, quick closing thoughts, anything else to add? And then also, where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
There we go. Quick closing thought. I think in addition to a lot of the other stuff we've been talking about, I'm expecting to see a lot of infrastructure spending in the U.S. and other countries over the next decade or so, trillions of dollars probably. So I think we're excited to see how renewable energy and clean tech plays into that. As far as reaching out to me, LinkedIn, Habib Sayed, best way to reach out to me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Keith. Quick closing thoughts. Where can you be found along with Upper Stage Ventures?
Great. Yeah, thanks. You can follow me on LinkedIn or on Twitter at Keith A. Gillard. Upperstage.ventures is the website, or you can check out the Foresight CleanTech Accelerator Center online. These are all my main activities. My closing thought here would be that we are finding ways to make clean tech a high returning venture investable area. It needs a lot more money. It is underserved, although the overall money raised in venture went up 45% last year. Clean tech has bounced back from its lows, but it's still only a tiny fraction of the amount of capital that it was in its heyday of 2007, 2008 pre-crash. We need the money to go into these technologies, to develop these businesses. The world really needs these things, and finding ways to provide superior financial returns there is just going to attract more capital and accelerate the great progress we need to make.
Absolutely. Thank you, Keith. And Wendy, close us out. Closing thoughts, where can you be found?
So you can find me at wendydiamond.com. That's where you can link to everything. I just think it's the greatest time in history. I mean, there is more money that is looking for the right deal flow, investments in this space. There is never a better time, and especially as a lifelong vegetarian, I will say to Brian, I agree 100% with everything. As a lifelong vegetarian, when you look at, how if more people if we replaced meat with more vegetarian options like Beyond Burger, etc., we could reduce carbon and greenhouse gas emissions. And what's really important to think about, because you don't really think about, but a vegetarian diet literally requires 2.5 times less the amount of land for meat. So let's protect our environment. Let's protect our agricultural landscapes. Because I think when you look at the world, we need trees, we need everything, and we need to stop tearing us all down. So that's my hope for life. And thank you so much for having me again.
Wonderful. And also check out Wendy Diamond on LinkedIn, as she forgot to mention it, but you can find her everywhere online. Oh, go ahead.
On wendydiamond.com.
There you go. All right. Habib, Wendy, Gary, Keith, Raghu, and Brian, thank you all very much for sharing your thoughts and insights today. Really appreciate all that you shared around sustainability, clean tech, food, blockchain, supply chain, security, quantum, everything we got into today. Thank you all so much. And to you, our audience, thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Thank you, everybody around. And share, and also check out the archive as well, not just to hear more from all of our speakers as they appear on many other great panels and topics as well. We've also had the chance to do fireside chats with just about all of them. Tons of information they have to share, so check it out on the website above. And if you'd like to be on a show like today to share your thoughts and insights around different technologies, industries around the world, do reach out to the team and or myself, and we'll find that right spot for you. Same with you, entrepreneurs. And speaking of that team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott, along with all social media platforms, as mentioned by all of our speakers as well. And when you do reach out to all of us, make sure to add context where you met us, where you heard from us, and what you'd like to continue the conversation about so we can make it effective and successful as well. With that, we'll be back here on VCTV after a short little break. See you soon, everybody. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.